When they were 22 months old, they got an infection and spiked a fever, and then they had a seizure. And that was the very first time that we found out that they had what's called febrile seizures.
We were married in 1988. We had a miscarriage that first year. We were never able to conceive again. A few years later, we took a couple of fertility treatments, and we were still never able to conceive. All we wanted to do was just be parents. We dreamed of being parents for many years. My family and her family and friends had kids growing up, and we were still there with no kids. And so those years were very painful.
I always wanted to be a mom. From the time I was a little girl, that's what I thought about. And then our adoption journey started in 2010. We decided to start the process. One day I came home and I said, what are we waiting for? Let's just do this. And so we started the classes with Division of Family Services, and it took a few months for us to get approved and get our license. And in February of 2011, we got our license. And we thought, well, in a couple of years, we'll get a call. But the very next month, we got a call about twin girls that were 5 months old. And we had to wait 6 weeks for our interview. And during that time, I said, babe, you're going to have faith for both of us because I'm really nervous. And that very day I said, when you go into a thrift store, just be looking for some cribs, because he always liked to go to thrift stores. And so that very day he went into a thrift store and he found 2 brand new cribs in the packages with the mattresses for $90 each. And I said, babe, buy those and we'll buy them in faith. We'll take them home and we'll just believe that the girls will be ours. And so we had to wait 6 weeks for our interview. And during that time, we just prayed and we asked God to just fill the room with His love. That's what we wanted. We wanted the room just to be filled with His love, and that they would just know that that God loved them. Not necessarily that we were the ones for the girls, but that, that God loved them. And that interview was so amazing because every person at one time or another cried during our story, and it was so awesome.
There were 4 families involved. We were chosen out of 4, and when we were chosen, the interview was on a Monday, and it was an all-day process because we had to come in. I think our interview was at 1 o'clock or something, and then they said, well, you may not even know if you're going to get chosen until the next day. And come to find out, we were actually on our way home, and the phone rang, and our social worker said, I've got to take this. It's a private phone call. So she left, and then she came back with a little card in the truck and said, congratulations, your parents. And so it was just so wonderful. That was on a Monday, and then we met the girls for the first time on a Wednesday, the very next Wednesday, and then by Monday they were living in our home. And we had 2 baby showers in that weekend. And God just provided everything that we needed for our children. And it was absolutely the most wonderful experience that we could ever go with, because, God's hand was upon it. God's hand was just moving in ways that nobody else could orchestrate anything. It had to be God that was doing it for us.
And we're thrilled beyond words. We just love every minute of being parents.
We were standing in front of the judge to adopt the girls, and the judge looked me right in the eye and he said, as of born to you. And what that meant to me is that these are mine. It doesn't matter if they were born with a different name. It doesn't matter if somebody else conceived them. They are my children. God gave them and moved them into my home and allowed me and JoAnn to be their mom and dad. And it was one of the greatest times and the greatest phrases that I've ever heard. And it impacted me so much, I will take it forever.
When they were 22 months old, they got an infection and spiked a fever, and then they had a seizure. And so we took them to the hospital, and first Piper had a seizure, and then when we were at the hospital, Sophie had a seizure at the same time. And so they put her on the table and started working on her. And that was the very first time that we found out that they had what's called febrile seizures.
You know, if you look at our backstory of, you know, not being able to have kids, then you finally get the children of your dreams, and then you have one of them that's laying in a hospital bed having a seizure, and you don't know what's going on because they're adopted, so you don't know any of their backstory, you don't know anything about them, except your baby Piper is in a hospital bed having a seizure. And then I'm holding Sophie, and sure enough, Sophie goes into a seizure, so I just lay her at the edge of the bed there, and they had 3 more nurses come in and work on her. And at that moment, your whole world is turned upside down again.
Well, sadly, I have to say that on Sunday morning, August 4th of 2013, our precious Piper passed away after her second seizure. And it was the most painful thing, and missing her every day is very difficult, especially after you wait so long for babies. 22 years is a long time to wait for kids, but we just have to trust God that His plan is better, and He gave me a dream and told me that this path is a better path. So I just trust Him and believe that He knows best.
There's really no words to express the loss of a child, especially when, you know, the judge, like I just said, the judge says, as of born to you, these are your children, and then you end up losing one. It just rips the bottom out from underneath you. But we know God is in control. No matter what the outcome or the situation is, God is always in control of the situation. And it devastated our lives to where, you know, you don't want to do anything. You just want to stay in bed and cuddle up and not have anything to do with anybody or anything like that. But thank God for family and friends that just comfort us. And you know, we're not through it. We'll never be through it or over it, because when you lose a child, you're never done with it or you're never over it. She's always a part of our heart. Piper is always a part of our life. She'll always be a part of our life. She's a part of our kids' lives, and we talk about her openly. We talk about her to Sophie and the different ones, and so it's always going to be a part. She's always going to be a part of our family. So when anybody asks us, how many kids do you have? We say 4, because God blessed us with 4 at this point, children through adoption.
Our caseworker gave us about a year or 2 to do some healing. She thought we needed to take some time. And so about a year later, almost a year after Piper's passing, she called us and she said, I have an 11-day-old little boy, and he needs a home, but we didn't know what the turnout was going to be. Would we be able to adopt him? We would just foster. We weren't sure. So his case tested our faith a lot more. And I would sit on the couch and I would rock him, and I would just tell him, like in my heart, I would say, I love you so much. You are loved more than any little boy in this whole world. And that time was very difficult, because if we would have lost him, it would have been like losing another child. It would have been very devastating. And thank the Lord, He gave us some promises, and He fulfilled that promise with Mason. And in March of last year, his adoption was final. And we are just so happy. At that time, we were so happy that he could be ours forever.
Even though he was in our home when he was 11 days old, the process through family services, just some of the things that were going on, the process took a long time for, you know, the final adoption. So it took about 19 months before he was actually able to be adopted. But he had a name that was a spiritual meaning to it, and so we took that name and wiped all that out that was before us, and we named him a name that Mason, which is foundation builder, because we believe that when our home was in so much disarray and chaos was going on, God brought this foundation builder, into our home and allowed us to be his parents.
And about 6 months later, after that, in September of 2015, we found out that Mason was expecting a sister. And we just immediately went into warfare and battle and just asking God to send her to us. And she was born out of state, and so it took 8 months to get her to us, but we're thankful for the foster family that she had. She had an amazing family that just took care of her and loved her, and we still stay in contact with them, and we're thankful for them as well. And I'm happy to say in July of this year, on the 14th, she also was ours forever. The judge proclaimed her ours forever, and so we have 4 beautiful children, and we are just so blessed to be parents, and we never even imagined all the pain for those 22 years of not having kids, and then to see that promise come about, because the Lord gave us a promise over how many years ago? It was like 20 years ago that we would have children, and to see our house full of laughter and joy is just beyond words.
Our goal is to reach out to help other families that are either struggling with fertility or that would like to know about the adoption process. We're here to help. That is our goal and our mission in life now. We've always wanted to do a work that God has given us, and we've preached and youth pastored and did different things, but with the adoption of the children and with the loss of Piper, God has set us on a path that we now have a purpose. We've always had a purpose to win souls, but now we have a purpose to win souls and to help people through a process that can be very intimidating when you're dealing with either family services or out of the country adoptions or different kinds of adoptions. It's very intimidating, not knowing if you're going to be able to get the child that your hopes have been up for, because once a profile is sent to your home, you kind of get attached to the profile. You kind of get attached to the process of having that baby in your home, and so if the procedure doesn't go your way, it can be very hardening and very it can just make you upset. So what we do is help people through that process. We've been able to help people through that and to talk to them. So that's what we do.
We're excited for the future and what the Lord has for us. And one of the scriptures that we've built our life on and that we have adapted for our family is in Ephesians 1:5. It says that God decided in advance to adopt us into his own family by bringing us to himself through Jesus Christ. This is what he wanted to do, and it gave him great pleasure. So we're excited for the journey ahead of us. We look forward to the goodness of God and what he has planned.
We are the Smith family, and we are upside down.